All right, so let's get started. If people jump in afterwards, I'll keep adding them, but I do want to kick us off today. So thank you for being here, everyone that's in the room. This tends to be typically a smaller session for the most part. Obviously, a lot of this information has been previously shared, is certainly accessible, but I want to take this time to go over it a little bit more in detail, and obviously answer any questions that anybody has regarding letters of evaluation, particularly those that are required for the committee letter process that we do each year. So happy to walk you through all of that. And again, there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. I just get one person in the chat to confirm that you can hear me and see the workshop. Perfect, thank you, Andrew. All right, so let's move on. So basically the goal for today, again, is to go over the different letters that our office produces each year, and also just the options that are available to you as a student looking to apply to a graduate program in one of the careers that we advised for. Depending on what career path you're looking for, obviously many of you are going to be pre-med, but some of you may be pre-dental, pre-PA, pre-optometry, pre-veterinary, et cetera. Some of those things are going to be a little bit different, and I'll talk about why that is and what you can look forward to. But again, just describing the different options available and how to acquire what you're looking to obtain, which again, for most of you is going to be a committee letter. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about that so far in our workshops and in our messaging to you. But again, just want to go over that a little bit more in detail today, as well as some of the other options available. So first and foremost, what is a committee letter, right? It can sometimes be this mysterious term that we throw around that you hear from time to time. But a committee letter is a relatively traditional way to apply to medical school. If your undergraduate institution or program that you're attending writes committee letters, it's typically understood that you're going to pursue and obtain a committee letter from that institution. At this moment, Northeastern program, we do write committee letters. So again, it's kind of the default that you would pursue that if you are applying to medical or dental or podiatry programs. So what does it actually have in it? So a committee letter includes the full content of all of your evaluators, plus an evaluation by our office, by the pre-health quote unquote committee. So we'll talk about what those letters are in a second. Up to 6 letters you can have contributed to the committee letter, plus our evaluation. All of that combined is what we call a committee letter. To obtain a committee letter, you do need to meet all the deadlines and conditions that we've set forth. Sierra sent, I believe 2 weeks ago at this point, maybe last week, some more information on the committee letter agreement, as well as the self-assessment. So if you want to read through exactly what's required, deadlines, whatnot, you're free to do so. And that is currently on your MAP profile if you want to read that. All letters that you intend to have included in the committee letter and that are required to obtain must be submitted to your MAP profile. So again, there is on your MAP profile, there is an evaluations section. And in that section, you can fill out evaluator information, and that's where they will submit them. And I'll talk a little bit about that process later on in this presentation. So letter packet, that might be another term you've heard thrown around from time to time. A letter packet is very similar to a committee letter, except it does not include an evaluation from the pre-health office. Typically, this is something that's requested by a student or applicant that may have missed a deadline for the committee letter and is no longer eligible to receive one, but is still intends to apply in that same cycle. The requirements are still exactly the same. So you still need to have all of those letters, the 3 faculty, the 1 clinical, et cetera, letters. It's just that you can still get a letter packet even if you miss a deadline. And they still need to be submitted to your MAP profile. Individual letters. So this is an option for, again, students that aren't pre-med, pre-dental, pre-podiatry, or for students that maybe are a little bit further out from their undergrad that are applying pre-med or pre-dental. PA, optometry, veterinary programs don't traditionally use committee letters. Instead, they just accept individual letters. So your evaluators would instead directly upload their letters straight to the veterinary or optometry or PA application services. So you'd want to work one-on-one with them for that. And again, for alumni or career changers who potentially are 3+ years out of undergrad at Northeastern, this would also be a conversation we'd have around, is a committee letter really the right option for you? Because those 3 faculty letters are required, and you're more than 3 years out, does it still make sense for you to have people that are from that long ago recommending you for your program? So we'd want to have that conversation with you. But again, individual letters are always an option. And just clarifying again, if you do use individual letters for your application or decide that's the best route, you don't want to request those through MAP, because we will not be forwarding those for you. So let me actually talk about what a committee letter looks like, how it's actually broken down. This is what we actually upload to medical, dental, podiatry schools on your behalf. So the first thing a admissions committee would see is our cover sheet. It kind of explains a little bit more specifics about what Northeastern actually is, specific things like co-op or summer courses, trying to get them to understand, again, summer courses are seen with the same rigor as fall and spring courses. We talk about our requirements, the things that you are required to go through to obtain to receive the committee letter, so they understand, again, what that process actually is. Following the cover letter is the actual evaluation that our office writes of each applicant. So this is a competency-based summary. And if you were to look at the self-assessment, the Qualtrics survey, for example, that's accessible now, you'd see how it's laid out. And our committee letter reflects very closely how this self-assessment is aligned, and that we go over your academic competencies, your clinical exposure, any research that you've done, as well as community engagement, meaning involvement, community service, and also interpersonal competencies. So your ability to be resilient, to overcome challenges, and your professionalism. All of those things are evaluated by our office using all the notes that we have on you and your interactions with us, as well as the information you provide us in your self-assessment. All of that is taken into consideration as we write that evaluation. After our evaluation comes your faculty letters. So again, 3 required faculty letters. We will include the name, degree, title, and department of each of those faculty members, as well as the full content of their letters, right in a row. So those are all 3 next. And after your 3 faculty will come, obviously, your required clinical letter, but then again, any of the optional letters that you've had as well. And those are full PDF copies that we include of those external letters. And that's the end. That's the entire committee letter. It's uploaded in one PDF known as the committee letter, and it satisfies medical school letter requirements. So it's not just one letter. You don't have to submit letters outside of the committee letter. It covers that base for you. Typically, it's about 7 to 8 pages. Again, that all depends on how much your faculty members potentially want to write about you. So to obtain a committee letter, these are the dates that you need to be aware of. Again, these have been sent out before and can be found on our website whenever you'd like to read them. The first one coming up is January 31st of 2022. That is when your agreement and self-assessment are due. So again, Sierra sent out further information on that last week. They're both accessible via your MAP profile. The committee letter agreement is truly just a form to fill out, a pretty quick form. The self-assessment, you want to take some more time with that, make sure you're being thorough in your responses, complete that survey, download the PDF copy, and then please upload that PDF to your MAP profile. If you have any problems with that, obviously contact your pre-health advisor. That is due January 31st. The next deadline is March 20th. That is when your 3 required faculty letters and your 1 clinical letter are due, and they're due on MAP. So again, I'll talk a little bit about timeline for that, but that is the cutoff for when those letters need to be in MAP by. On April 15th, that is the deadline to complete your required committee letter meeting with your pre-med or pre-health advisor. When you submit your committee letter agreement and self-assessment on January 31st, we will then reach out to you to set that meeting up. And that meeting can take place between early February and April 15th. So a pretty long span of time for you to meet with myself, Kelly, or Sierra. One thing I would say is that at that meeting, it's good to prepare and bring along a copy of a personal statement. So again, if you really want to get that meeting out of the way in early February, then potentially having a draft ready by early February. If you need some more time, potentially scheduling that meeting for some time in March. On May 1st, that's when optional letters are going to be due. So again, these can come, and I'll go over this in a little bit, these can come from anyone outside of the Northeastern system, these 2 optional letters. It can also be a faculty from Northeastern that didn't teach you, right? So if you're a teaching assistant or perhaps did research for a faculty member, but they didn't teach you, those people can still write you external letters, even though they're from Northeastern. But you can't have like a fourth or fifth faculty letter talking about your performance in the classroom. That's just limited to those required 3. But again, those optional letters will be due May 1st. May 31st is the deadline to sit for the MCAT for MD and DO applicants. So please keep that in mind. And I just want to clarify again, that's the deadline to sit for the MCAT. It's not the deadline to get a score back. So if you sit by May 31st, you'll get your score by end of June at the latest. June 30th, there's 2 things here. One is the deadline to sit for the DAT if you're a pre-dental applicant. It's also the deadline to completely fill out your medical applicant portal, submit your primary application, and actually hit request for your committee letter. Yes, this is all 2022, by the way. And I do see questions coming in. I just want to make sure I'm focusing on this, and I'll get to any questions I miss at the end. Okay, so going into a little bit more specifics here on your committee letter requirements, like I mentioned before, the 3 internal faculty letters. So 2 of these need to be science-based, otherwise known as BCMP, biology, chemistry, math, or physics. There are courses that our office has worked with other departments at Northeastern to kind of figure out, are these, even though they're not biochem, math, or physics courses, are they still considered science courses? So I'll send this out afterwards, so you can click on that link if you want to, and actually look at other courses you could use for a science letter. We still do want one of those science letters to come from biochem, math, or physics, but again, the other one could come from one of the pre-approved courses. And then 1 letter from any discipline, so your non-science letter. Sometimes we get requests from students about, hey, you know, this course was not on the pre-approved list that you sent out. Could it still be considered a science letter? If you have a question around that, please just just reach out to your pre-med, pre-health advisor and ask about that. We do from time to time review different courses and may give permission, but you need to have a pretty good reason as to why you think a course that we haven't already checked off is science-based. So if it's heavy in bio, heavy in chem, math, or physics, just let us know. And again, just to clarify, these letters need to be from professors that taught you in a full course at Northeastern and graded you. It can't be from a relationship you had as a TA or a 1-credit course like co-op. It needs to be an actual Northeastern course. All right, so who should I ask? So these are just suggestions, but again, most students do kind of hit these boxes here. Obviously, you know, we're asking you to request from BCMP, thinking about if one of your prerequisite courses or a course that had a lab component, if that makes the most sense. Someone in that category, someone from your major, again, not a requirement. Many of you probably have courses that overlap between your major and pre-med or pre-health prerequisites, so that could be a good idea. And again, at least 1 professor from outside your major. So usually that's for the non-science letter that applicants are asking for that letter. But ultimately what I'm trying to say here is show some academic diversity. If you're requesting ultimately 3 letters from the same major or from very similar backgrounds, that's good. That's great that you have that, but it might be better to actually show some diversity of thought and your ability to perform well in a variety of subjects at the end of the day. So for the external letters, again, you do need 1 external letter, and that would be your 1 clinical letter. This needs to be from a practitioner in the field to which you're applying, right? So if you're applying to MD programs, your clinical letter needs to be submitted by an MD. For osteopathic schools, DO, for dental, DMD, etc. And again, this second paragraph is also pretty important as well. The letter must represent a relevant college level experience, right? So that's something we've changed. In past cycles, it's been within 18 months of application. Since COVID started though, we've made it college level. So basically anything after high school where you're interacting with patients and an MD can reflect on that would be valid for a clinical letter for this process. It should be within the US. Again, we will make the exception if it was outside the US, as long as it was like a US sponsored or hospital sponsored or organization sponsored trip or endeavor with a US physician, that physician can write you a clinical letter as well. If you have questions about specifics, again, please just reach out to your pre-health advisor. It must include patient interactions. Good amount of questions we typically get around clinical research and whether an MD could write a letter around that. As you all know, clinical research can vary pretty widely. If you're interacting with subjects or patients and an MD was able to kind of witness that, supervise that, observe that, then yes, that would be acceptable for a clinical letter. Again, if you're just not sure or have specific questions around that, please reach out to your pre-health advisor to double check. Letters from family friends are not encouraged, and letters from family members themselves are definitely prohibited. You should be able to kind of network and meet and talk to and shadow or observe physicians that aren't in your immediate sphere. And then you have those 1 to 2 optional slots as well. I want to be clear that not everyone uses these, so please don't feel that you have to use these 1 to 2 slots to be successful. But again, if you do have additional people that could speak on your behalf, talk about your professional competencies, whether it's a co-op supervisor from a really impactful volunteer experience, maybe it's from a PI either on campus or through co-op, et cetera. That's what those slots are typically used for. And like I said before, if you want another faculty member to write a letter, it needs to be from something outside the classroom. It can't be a fourth kind of academic letter. So again, just to kind of wrap up here, 1 clinician in the field to which you're aspiring to go into, letters from research, co-op, supervisors, community service, and those who can talk about different aspects of yourself. Again, for those 1 to 2 optional letters have seen a very wide range of people, such as coaches, resident directors, other staff, faculty on campus here, even like a high school job that someone's had for a really long time beyond high school. I've seen supervisors write letters from that, just talking about consistency and dependability. So think about who can represent you best and talk about those qualities. 6 letters is the maximum, yes, for the committee letter. 3 internal faculty and 3 external letters. So some exceptions and conditions. So this is becoming more common, certainly. So students or applicants that are applying to both MD and DO programs who want to obtain a committee letter for both of those applications do need 2 clinical letters, 1 from an MD and 1 from a DO. The secondary clinical letter can come in after March 20th, but not after May 1st. So if you obtain your MD letter by March 20th, and you're still planning to apply to MD and DO programs with a committee letter, your DO letter can come in after March 20th, but it needs to be in before May 1st. As long as that happens, we can submit a committee letter for both MD and DO programs. If, in the second bullet here, if you are unable to get that secondary letter before May 1st, we can still submit a letter packet for that second application. So for example, and again, this is quite common as well, if you're able to get that MD letter for March 20th, just cannot get that DO letter for May 1st, but still want to apply to MD and DO programs, we'll go ahead and submit a committee letter for your MD application and a letter packet for your DO application. So again, we'll track this as you each go through this, but just know that those options are available to you. If you're an MD PhD applicant, we do recommend using both of those optional slots for research letters. We definitely want you to be aware of individual MD PhD program requirements. Some of them are very specific about how many research letters or recommendations they want. So just make sure you're satisfying that no matter what. Potentially you may even have to request a letter outside of the committee letter if you need more than 2. But again, using both those optional letter slots for research letters would be advised here. So letter packets, right? The other option that we provide. If you miss a deadline, for example, if for some reason you're not able to obtain a clinical letter by March 20th, we would let you know, hey, you missed this deadline. You'd no longer be eligible for a committee letter, but you may request a letter packet when you're ready to do so. You want to be prepared to explain this option to admissions, right? They may ask you why you have a letter packet, or there can be a spot for you to even explain in a secondary application. For example, hey, this is why I have a letter packet and not a committee letter. At the end of the day, it's the same exact requirements. So you still need to have the same letters submitted, the 3 faculty and the 1 clinical. But again, you can, if you miss a deadline, we're not going to not send it. A letter packet can be sent at any point in the cycle. Again, there's no deadlines to receive one. And again, they need to be on MAP, and we'll verify them. Once they're verified, we'll upload it, the letter packet. We will send out more specific instructions on how to request a letter packet and how to request the committee letter as we get closer to the spring. And then the third option here, individual letters. So just to reiterate, evaluators do submit these letters directly to the application service. So again, if you're applying to VMCAS, the veterinary application service, you would not request those letters through MAP, you'd request them directly through VMCAS. And again, if you're doing individual letters, please keep a running list of what your individual programs require. Again, the committee letter, the letter packet, those are typically coveralls. So you don't have to worry too much about what individual MD dental programs are asking for, because in many cases, a committee letter kind of does more than what the minimum is. If you're submitting individual letters, however, just make sure that you are hitting the minimum of what's being asked. If it's 1 faculty, 2 faculty, 1 clinical, 2 clinical, etc. All right, and then the other 2 points I've already covered today. So this is another big part of going through this process that we definitely get a lot of questions about, is how do I actually reach out to a faculty? How do I find these people? How do I connect to them? What if it's been a while? What do I do? So I certainly would encourage you to bring this up and talk to your pre-health advisor about it. I've been having a lot of those conversations myself lately with applicants for this coming summer. You need to really look at the courses you've taken, who you feel the most connected with, where you've performed well, and what do you think is going to actually benefit you in the future? What potential topics that you learned about could actually be relevant or meaningful to your future as a physician, dentist, etc. Or, was there a project you were really proud of in a certain class, or group work, or did you actually get to know the professor pretty well? Those are the types of connection you should be thinking about. Those are the people you should be asking for letters from. If you're in the situation where, I just really haven't been able to connect to a faculty member, or, I'm hearing a lot, obviously, recently about having a lot of these courses be virtual, and so not having even had that opportunity, this is where your networking skills need to play a good role. Depending on your situation, you may need to reintroduce yourself in an email to a professor. And it's important for you to indicate in that message to them why you've chosen them to reach out to. So I always kind of say, please provide a reason in your message to a faculty about writing a letter as to why you chose them versus anybody else to write that letter. Is it because you enjoyed the course content? Is it because you enjoyed their teaching style? Is it because you're proud of your accomplishments or your progress in that course, etc.? Let them know. If you just send them a generic email saying, I'm applying to medical school, I'd like you to write a letter for me, they're not going to be very motivated to get back to you and say, yeah, of course. So make that personal as possible if you can. Also be prepared and ready to provide them with documentation or details that they may need. For an example, your resume or the letter writer guidelines, which are linked here. And the AAMC letter writer guidelines are honestly good for any profession you're applying to. So please don't be afraid to click on those and read through them. We also do send an instructional email to your letter writer, so they will get more information on that as well. Every single faculty, I will say, has a little bit different of a procedure to how they do this. So if you reach out to one person, they could just say, okay, I'll do it. Absolutely, you got a good grade. You were a good student. Send me your resume, maybe a draft of your personal statement, and I'd be happy to do this for you. Another professor might say, okay, I'll do this for you, but I do need to meet with you first. So let's set up a Zoom or in-person meeting to talk through your ambitions, your goals, etc. Once you make the request, the ball is in their court. They'll let you know exactly what they need at that point. At the actual meeting, if you do have one, or the chance to kind of express yourself here, please talk about your motivations for going into your program. Why do you want to do this? Why is this the one path that makes sense for you, right? You're going to be asking yourself this question a lot over the next year. This is a good place to start sharing that information with your recommenders. Again, provide them any documents they may need. Most of the faculty especially COS faculty at Northeastern, are going to be very aware of this process as they submit multiple letters each year for everyone applying to medical dental programs. So it's probably not going to be too much explanation needed. However, if a faculty member is new, you can let them know about the details of our process, that this letter is a requirement for someone applying to medical or dental school, etc. But again, they will get instructions from us. And again, make sure they're aware of the deadline, right? That's one of the worst things. If you just say, do it whenever you have the time. Yes, but also please let them know there is a firm deadline of March 20th this year for those letters to come in. If it's an optional external letter, again, you can let them know May 1st is their deadline. And finally, obviously, I know you all do this, but please let them know that you are appreciative of the fact that they accepted this task. And please keep them updated too. I think that's one thing that can kind of fall off the radar after you submit your application, is that applicants may not update anyone that was involved in the creation of their application. I don't think that these faculty members are going to spend the time writing letters for you if they don't actually care or have any interest in your future. So please feel free to let them know how you're doing even after you submit. So once you've confirmed that the faculty member is going to be writing this letter for you and you've given them the materials that they need and are met with them, go ahead and put their information in the evaluation section of MAP. Again, that's going to generate an instructional email with an upload link that they will receive. If for any reason the faculty member or clinical evaluator, et cetera, isn't receiving that instructional email or is having trouble with anything, please just let your pre-health advisor know. I'm going to be overseeing this process for this year as I did last year. So I'm the go-to person. If there's ever any huge issue, of course, there's workarounds to the system. We prefer obviously that everything goes directly through MAP and through those upload links, but if we need to, we can make exceptions. But please just let us know as soon as something goes wrong, and hopefully again, it doesn't. But my email can be found on the website, and I'll send the link to that at the end. But my email will also be in that auto-generated email as well. Again, I just want to say, please do not put your evaluator's information into MAP and hit submit on that until you've confirmed that they're going to do that. The worst thing that can happen is that you assume that someone's going to write a letter for you, you put their information in, and suddenly they're like, why am I getting this letter to complete a letter for you? I never said I was going to do this. So please just make sure they say, yes, I'll do that before you put their information in. The latest we'd want you to have these in MAP, requested in MAP, not received, but putting the request in is January 31st of 2022. That gives your evaluators just under 2 months to get this done. And again, that is going to be needed just due to the number of requests that they typically receive in a given year. And it's just professional courtesy as well. We typically say, even right now in early November is a good time to start reaching out to faculty if you haven't already, and just ensuring that you know who you're going to ask and who's committed. But again, January 31st would be our recommended date that you have this figured out. Second point here, please do not letter shop. So don't ask 5 professors at once and then choose the best 3 that get back to you. That's definitely not a professional way to do things. Please ask 1 professor at a time, or only up to 3 professors. And then if someone says no, then move on to the next backup person. But please don't ask for more than 3 at one time. You are capped to 3 internal letters on MAP, so you will not be able to request more than 3. So again, please make sure you're emailing only 3 at a time. And once you have that confirmed, then you can put their information in. Again, if anything happens or you mess up on MAP, please reach out to your pre-health advisor. We can fix that for you. Waiving your right to view letters is an automatic on MAP. So it should just be automatically checked off from you. But that is, again, professional courtesy, is that you waive your right to view these letters from faculty. You will not be able to read or review your committee letter before we upload it. That is just standard practice. If you have any questions about that specifically, I'd want you to reach out to your pre-health advisor, but that's been something we've been doing for a very, very, very long time. And also, just to be honest with everyone, when a letter is not confidential, it's much more difficult to write it because a writer may not feel as confident or able to be as honest in their evaluation, and we don't want that to happen either. A lot of questions around this in terms of, can I track my letters once I request them? Yes, you can. So when you put in a request in MAP, it's going to say sent next to it. That means you've sent the request to the faculty member and they should have received that email. When the faculty member, or again, any of your evaluators upload their letter, it's going to say waiting for verification. This just means that it's in MAP and one of our staff members needs to go through it and make sure everything is okay formatting wise, that they've included everything that we asked them to include, that it's signed, dated, etc. That's what waiting for verification means. Once we've made sure that it looks good, it has everything that medical or dental schools need from it, we're going to change the status to verified. That's the final status. Once it says verified, it's done, it's good to go. Letters that are received by March 20th or May 1st are considered having met the deadline if it says waiting for verification. We just need the letters to be submitted by March 20th, not verified by March 20th. I hope that makes sense. And again, I can answer any questions about that, but we will verify them as much as we can. There's a lot of letters, as you can imagine, that come in on and around March 20th, and there's only a few of us in the office. So it takes us quite some time to verify everything. But again, as long as your letters are submitted and waiting for verification by the deadline, that's what you need. Just some final notes here before we go into more questions. Please trust your letter writers. Certainly I get a lot of emails and questions every year right before the deadline. I'm not hearing back from my faculty member. They said they do it, but I don't know. Please trust them, especially those that do this every single year. They're very aware of the deadlines. We're actually giving them 5 more days this year than previous years because of spring break, so they have a little bit extra time, hopefully. But please trust them. Follow their instructions, follow what they ask of you, but they know what they're doing. Again, make sure to thank them with an email or a card and keep in touch with them when you have good news to share. One of the stipulations about the committee letter or any letters of rec that are submitted on your behalf through MAP, we can't forward those to anybody else besides what they were originally designated for, right? So we submit your committee letter to medical, dental, podiatry programs. We can't forward that to a master's program application or a post-bac program application. That's not what they're meant for. That's not what the faculty member's clinical letter evaluator signed up for. So if you're applying for one of those other programs, you would need to do that separately. Although we can certainly email an original copy of an evaluator's letter back to them if they, for whatever reason, lost their copy. And again, there's just the link that I'll send to all of you with the actual process on my website. Just to keep something on the screen. All right, so that's it for today. Definitely want to see if there's any questions remaining or answer any new questions that come through as well. So yes, question about, will faculty be aware of the March 20th deadline when you request it for them? Yes, so in that automatically generated email that I was mentioning, it will give kind of a full description of when those letters are due. So it will say March 20th, but it's also good to let them know when you interact with them, that will be the deadline. Awesome. So question about, is it okay to ask potentially a professor you took in your first year at Northeastern? It certainly would meet the requirement, right? It's a faculty letter. It's probably going to be a 4-credit course that you're graded in. So yes, you can do that. Again, it's just those same questions of, does this person know me well? Did I do well in the class? Is there somebody from a more recent course that I took that could potentially evaluate me as strongly? So those are questions that only you know the answer to. Technically, yes, you can do that, but I'd want you to at least consider some more recent options before going that route. These letters are due, faculty letters are due March 20th. You really shouldn't be asking anyone that you're currently in a course with for spring, right? If you've completed that course now at the end of this fall semester, absolutely you can ask that person for a letter due March 20th. But if you're taking a class with a professor for the first time in the spring, they're not going to really be able to get to know you that well or even grade you in that course before they'd be submitting this letter. So it's certainly not ideal or advised if you're looking at that. Yeah. So another common issue here, if we were requested a letter and we haven't heard back from the faculty, how long do we wait? I would say give them a good week. If for what the first time you reach out to them, and then follow up again, I'd wait another week. And if you don't hear anything back, I would potentially try one more time, but also at that point, after 2 weeks, I'd have a backup person in mind ready to reach out to. Outside of their email, you might consider reaching out to the department that they're part of for alternative ways to contact them. Some students have had luck using LinkedIn to reach out to professors versus email, but I certainly don't want to have you kind of scouring Northeastern for different ways to reach out to faculty. At a certain point, they're probably going to be overwhelmed or really busy and not able to reply. And so again, just potentially have some backup options to reach out to if a specific person isn't reaching out to you. Yeah, the dates that I'm talking about for this are students that are planning to submit their application summer of 2022 to start a program in 2023. In terms of should you suggest a meeting in your email to them, I would say in your first email you could say, I'm very open or able to meet if you prefer or would like. But again, each faculty is going to have their preference on what they want to do, but it's fine to offer that or suggest that. Yes. So if for one of your optional letters, you do want to use a Northeastern faculty that you've happened to have an outside of the classroom experience with, but they've also taught you in a class, you can still have that person write you an external letter, but please just let them know that they should keep pretty much like 99% of their focus on that outside the classroom activity. But yes, they can still write one of your optional letters. Yes, directed study professor can absolutely write you one of your letters. It's a 4-credit course, it's graded, so that's totally fine. Yeah, so if you meet all the deadlines and requirements for the committee letter, we will let you know how to request one later on in the spring. And again, if at any point in this process you realize that this is not the right application cycle for you, we will retain anything that you've put on MEP. So even if you request your 3 faculty letters by March 20th and you decide in April, I'm not going to be applying this summer anymore, I'm stressed, this is not the right time, we'll hang on to your 3 faculty letters and you can just use them the following year. So there's not a ton to lose here if you decide to defer after you get these letters in. So again, when to follow up, when to go another direction, I would say probably between 2 and 3 weeks, making the decision, okay, this is when I need to start thinking about a backup person. Again, we really just want you to have these all figured out and requested by January 31st. You still have another couple months. Obviously, finals and holidays are coming up, so there's a little bit of time that's going to be tricky here. So after about 2 to 3 weeks of not hearing back from a professor, I'd want you to start thinking about, okay, who's another person I could reach out to? Now that we are back in person, if you can attend office hours or connect with a professor in person, that's obviously a preferable way of kind of reaching out to them and kind of getting that answer in that moment, or at least asking for a follow-up. Obviously, it was much harder last year. So if you can use that in-person aspect, that would be great. CPS students can absolutely go through the committee letter process with us. There is information on, let me actually pull up that link. Any questions that I didn't answer yet? Yes, the psych stats course or behavior. I'd have to see, pretty much any statistics course would be a science course. I'm not entirely sure which stats course that is, but most stats course we would consider a science course, but just look on that list in the document. I'll send the document out later today. And there's a link to the other courses outside of BCMP that we consider to be science, but usually most stats course we would take for a science center. Yes, absolutely, biostats, absolutely. And the public health version as well. No, so the English advanced writing course, that's an English course. That would be that would be a non-science center if you want to do that, but it wouldn't be a science course. So again, if a course in your major that isn't on the list on our website, if you want that to be reviewed, we can absolutely review that, but I can't do individual ones right now, unfortunately. We would need to review them as an office. So let me just send both of these out to the chat right now. So this is the list of courses that we would look at outside of BCMP that would be considered one of your science letters. Again, if there's something not on this list that you want us to take a look at, we're happy to do so. Just email your pre-health advisor with that course and the description. Again, we're only going to really make that exception if the courses you're sending us are science heavy. So please just take that into consideration. And then for any CPS students here in the post-bac program, if you want to look on this page, and at the bottom there's a tab that will say Northeastern post-bac students, please just read through there to see if you would or would not qualify for the committee letter. There's just a number of classes that you need to take in the program to qualify for one. So if you're not sure who your pre-health advisor would be, you can look on the contact page, and I'll send that now as well. If you are planning to apply this year, whether you're an undergraduate student or in the post-bac program, please go ahead and book an appointment with us if you haven't already, and talk about your plan for application. And again, how to book an appointment is explained on that page I just sent. So if you don't qualify for a committee letter, it's probably because you either missed a deadline or for another reason. And again, we would just want to talk to you about what that means. The requirements for a letter packet are, again, the exact same as a committee letter. So you still need the 3 faculty, the 1 clinical. It's just that there's no deadlines for those things. Yes, if you're in your application year, then you are allotted 2 appointments. So 1 could be in the fall and 1 would be your committee letter meeting in the spring. All right, any questions that I may have missed today? These are all good questions, by the way, I appreciate it. Good question. I want to say yes. I can follow up with you on that. But I believe if you have a faculty that are from a previous institution that you'd like to include as an optional external, we can do that. It's just you wouldn't be able to have a 4th Northeastern faculty letter. All right, I will stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone has any other questions. But otherwise, I really appreciate you all tuning in today. I know this can be somewhat dry information. If you have any additional questions about specifics of letters you're thinking of or faculty you're thinking of, or just kind of feel frustrated, please reach out to your pre-health advisor and we'll help walk you through this process as best we can. But I definitely empathize with the difficulty of obtaining these letters and nailing them down, but just keep trying, keep being patient. And again, please vent your frustrations to us. We'll do our best to help you. Yeah, just a quick question about the self-assessment. I would recommend not completing it until the end of the semester. You know, it's not due until January 31st, and it's meant to be a comprehensive document. You're welcome to start it now and then just finish it in potentially in a couple months. If you need to update anything, you know, you can bring that information with you to our committee letter meeting, but don't feel any rush to fill out that document. Take your time, please. All right, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it.